It is 2023 and I feel like it is time to stop asking homeschoolers about socialization. But in all seriousness, I wanted to share with y'all 10 things that I feel like as a homeschooler and knowing many, many homeschoolers as well, these are 10 things that we wish that people knew. These are things that we wish that we could say, that when people ask us in public, when we're out at the grocery store in the middle of the day and they're like, "Oh, no school today, kids," and our kids are like, we did school already, we're homeschooled. And then inevitably you get the gasp and response of like, "Oh, I could never homeschool my kids." It's so awkward to figure out the proper way to respond because we don't always know why someone is saying that. Are they saying that because, once again, they feel our decision to homeschool is an indictment on their decision not to? Do they say that because they can't stand being around their kids all day? Or does this person just feel like, "Well, I'm not a teacher, I'm not qualified, I could never homeschool my kids"? We never really know the reason behind the response, which also makes it hard for us to find a kind and sort of appropriate response to that. So today's video is sort of my, video response to that. This is me sharing 10 things that I feel like I wish you knew about homeschooling and that I know other homeschooling moms wish people knew about homeschooling. Number one is that at the end of every day, the reason that we choose to homeschool our kids is because we genuinely love it, value it, and think it's important. Whatever reasons brought us to homeschooling, those are greatly varied. It can be everything from someone's kid wasn't doing really well in public school, they felt like they were struggling or behind, or maybe their child was being bullied intensely and they needed to pull them out of that school. There's so many reasons that people homeschool. But what keeps people homeschooling, what keeps families homeschooling for the long run, is a genuine love of homeschooling and a value that they see in it and what it brings to their family and to their kids. And nobody I know homeschools their kids out of a sense of moral superiority or that they are better than you or think that they're better than you or better than other people. They homeschool because it's about them and their family. Again, I always try to remind people that we have to be better at seeing things as like good for her, not for me. Her decision to do that isn't an indictment on my decision not to. Sort of that live and let live theory. Of course, we're always going to want to sort of shout from the rooftops why we love homeschooling and think it's so beneficial for kids, but that doesn't mean that we think it's right for everybody. Someone's choices for their family are not an indictment on your choices for your family. No. Number two is that I also think that people assume that we are replicating school at home, that we are sitting in little desks all day doing schoolwork and mom is standing up in front of the class like a teacher and teaching the kids, and that there's just no way that you could possibly do school all day and then still take care of the things that you have to take care of as a mom, the responsibilities, working full time. There's so many factors at play, and I think that people have sometimes an unrealistic view of what's actually happening in the day in the life of a homeschooling family. Also, even new homeschoolers. If you are new to homeschooling, the idea that you have to replicate a classroom at home, it's something that will likely hinder your success and enjoyment of homeschooling in the long run. If you can begin with already letting go of that sort of idea, you will be so much more successful. I do have, by the way, a free homeschool masterclass. I will put the link down below if you want to sign up, if you're interested in homeschooling, or maybe you are currently homeschooling and feeling like it's not working out quite how you wanted to. Check out the free masterclass down below in the description box. I'm going to point you to exactly what you need to do in order to homeschool with confidence and clarity in your choices. That's all in that free masterclass, so I'll link that down below. Our days are not exact replicas of a school classroom at home. In fact, our goal is to not have it look like that for the most part. So we get our schoolwork done in a handful of hours every single day. That leaves the rest of the day open for play, for housework, all of that. And a huge part of this, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I know that these can tend to kick up other conversations. Huge part of that is learning what to focus on, what to let go of. That's really going to help allow you to balance out your day so that you're not doing school all day, every day. Knowing what ages of kids are going to need more one-on-one, that sort of thing. So our days don't quite look like I think that people would assume that they would, and we like it that way. Number 3, yes, the diversity amongst homeschoolers. Let me just tell you, long gone are the days of homeschooling being this idea that this was like this uber, religious, cult-like thing, whatever vision you have in your head of what a homeschooler must be. It has varied and changed so much over the years. I think people would be shocked if they knew like the varied types of people that homeschool their kids. It is everything from 2 full-time working parents. Yes, it's possible. It can be done. There are plenty of families who work full-time and homeschool their kids. So you have that sort of area where, you might have 2 doctors who just feel like their kids are not getting the education that they want, and so they homeschool. There are professors who homeschool their kids. I mean, the variety of people who choose to do this it's incredible, honestly. And I think it speaks to the value of homeschooling, and that once people kind of get their foot in the door of it and they see the freedom, they see the fulfillment that they get out of it, they see the fulfillment for their children, the value for their children, they really do kind of like go, okay, this is cool, I'm gonna keep doing this. So homeschoolers are varied. We are not all one. We are not 2 horns on the same goat, if you will. I got to slip in a little Angieism, a little Southernism in there for you. Everybody's different. Families are different. They operate differently. I'm hoping that in the very near future, we can shed the sort of stereotypes of what homeschoolers must be and embrace our weirdness. We like being a little bit weird, and we're just going to keep embracing it until the rest of the world recognizes that we are no weirder than the rest of you. We're weird, and we're all weird in our own special ways. Number 4, I'm going to try not to ruffle any feathers because this is one that gets me a little bit heated, a little fired up, and one that can tend to get other people a little bit fired up when they want to fight and argue about it. And that is that parents aren't qualified to teach their children. You're not qualified to homeschool your kids. What qualification do you have? Truth is, the only qualification that you really need is that nobody else on this planet has more invested, cares more about the outcome of my child's life and success than I do. Moreover, and this is something I talk a lot about, I teach a lot about in my course and stuff, is that in the beginning, yes, you are doing a lot of teaching. In those younger years, you are doing a lot of teaching. Kids don't just know how to teach themselves. But the idea is that we are teaching our children how to learn. We're teaching them how to find information. That is really the key thing, because what they learn, when they learn it, it matters, but also it doesn't. I mean, listen, I'm like going on a rabbit trail, but I'm not going to. So them's fighting words, I know. But they need to be able to know how to learn for the rest of their lives, because then everything is open to them. The world is their oyster. They can go down whatever path they want to if they know how to learn information, how to find information that they need to have. The reality is that our need in this modern age to memorize everything is getting smaller and smaller. What we really need is to know how to find information, know how to sift through information, and how to distill it into something that will help us or get the answer that we need. So homeschooling and educating your children is about so much more than teaching them facts to memorize, just sort of like standard bookwork stuff. If people were being honest, they probably don't remember from school. And that's actually one of the number 1 things I hear from people is, I could never homeschool my kids. I don't remember anything from math but that system, you're claiming that system works really well, but you don't remember anything? No, because it's not teaching you the information in a way that's allowing you to actually retain it. It's stuffing it down your throat to memorize, to take a test at the end of the year, and then you can forget it and move on. Again, I'm going to just chill myself out here because we have to keep going, but this is absolutely not true, and parents are qualified to teach their children. Absolutely, they are qualified to teach and then become guides to help their children on their educational journeys. Number 5 is that homeschool kids are weird, that they're unsocialized, that they're sheltered, and that they're weird. Well, again, I understand that we've all met, probably likely at some point, a weird homeschool child. But you've probably also met a weird kid from public school, because the truth is that who we are, our personalities, are very often just sort of set in who they are as our family, nature versus nurture. The way that you're being educated isn't going to make you more outgoing or make you more introverted. This idea that just because you homeschool your kids means that they're going to be weird, sheltered, and unsocialized, which are kind of three very different things, by the way. Sheltered is actually not a bad thing. We should be sheltering our kids from certain things if we can. Even as homeschoolers, there are things that we cannot shelter them from, because guess what? We take them out in public. We socialize them. We take them to the dog park and walk them on a leash. They socialize with other dogs. It's totally fine that your kids are sheltered in some areas. I don't know why that's like a bad thing or why people see it as a bad thing. But our kids are absolutely socialized. They get out into the world. They spend time with other people. We don't attempt to protect them from every little thing that they could ever encounter. We just aim to keep their childhood intact for as long as possible. And homeschooling allows us a great way to at least attempt to do that. Number 6 is kind of like admitting that we as homeschoolers accept the fact that there are some things that our kids won't understand right away because they didn't go to public school or private school. You know, the joke about like homeschool kids, they don't know how to like wait in lines or stand in lines and stuff like that. But the truth is that there are some elements of public school that our children are unfamiliar with. But my argument would be that most of those things can either be taught if it's really necessary, like how to wait in line. They learn how to wait in line at all kinds of places. It doesn't have to be at school. Or those things, if not needed to be taught, are just completely unnecessary for life outside of school. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to tick some people off, and I don't mean to, but it's the truth. The schools are a lot like prisons. And so I don't hope that my kids are going to end up in prison. So the rules, the strictness, the way that it operates, I don't know that my kids have to know that to be successful for the rest of their life unless they're intending to go to prison. I'm just kidding. See, I'm getting sassy. I get a little defensive because, you know, the reality is that as homeschoolers, we have to deflect a lot of other people's issues and their snark towards us for our decisions. And sometimes it's like, we're just going to snark back a little bit. Okay. The next is that our kids are not learning enough. They're not going to be able to go to college. They're not going to learn what they need to learn. And this is just not something that I worry about. Maybe my expectations for my kids are different than your expectations for your kids, and that's okay. I can assure you that my children are learning enough. They are learning the things that they need to learn at their pace. And I, for one, am very happy because I really want my kids to enjoy learning. I want them to enjoy reading. There's so many elements of learning that I feel are so valuable for the rest of their life, and that the best way to ensure success for them in that regard is to make sure that I don't squash their love of learning. Children are inherently curious little creatures. They want to know stuff. They might not want to know the stuff you want them to know right now, but they are very curious. And if we can kind of lean into that curiosity, that natural curiosity, and not like just burn it down with our like, now memorize this, learn this, then I really think we're setting them up for a lifelong love of learning, which is only going to benefit them as they go on about their life and their whatever they want to do, their careers and stuff. The ability to not only know how to learn, but a desire to learn is something that I really want to instill in my children. And it's something that I personally struggled with because of the difficulties that I had in school and the way that the system was sort of created. It didn't help a kid like me. And so I had to rediscover and reignite that love of learning for myself. But not everybody comes to that. Not everybody kind of has a full circle moment for themselves. And it didn't really kick in for me until I started homeschooling my own kids, realizing that there was another way, there was other ways to teach things, and I have loved learning alongside my children. Number 8 is that there are actually no more hours in our day as homeschoolers than anyone else has in their day. And I think sometimes people think, well, if you homeschool and you do this and you do that, then you just must have like some time warp to an extra 5 hours a day. And we don't. We do have to be pretty good about using our time wisely. We can't waste a lot of time, especially depending on the ages of your kids, the number of kids you're homeschooling, whether or not you're working outside the home, what else you have going on. You may have to be more diligent with your time, but I think that that's a valuable thing, and it's something that I am forever ebbing and flowing and trying new things and setting new rhythms and routines for our family. The key to homeschool, hear me say this, if you are homeschooling and struggling, or if you're interested in homeschooling, set yourself up for success. The key to homeschooling is being flexible. If you are a very type A person, this is going to be hard for you until you can take a deep breath and figure out a way that you can relax a little bit to become a little bit more flexible. You can still achieve the goals, still get the things done, but flexibility is required. And I just want to throw in the little caveat that my children, a couple of them have gone to public school for a time in different periods, and I will tell you that it was way harder for me to keep track of the things that were going on in school, the things that they needed, the things they needed to bring, what dress-up days were, crazy sock days, crazy hair days, donate for this, attend this. All of the hoopla was way harder for me to keep up with than doing their education on a regular basis at home. I just want to say that. Maybe that's just a me thing, but it was way harder for me to keep up with all that. So sometimes I think parents who have their kids in school already are kind of envisioning what they're experiencing on steroids if they have to, do it all themselves at home. But to me, it was actually a huge load lightener to not have to deal with all of that stuff. Number 9 is we're going to drill down a little bit more on socialization, because I really do think that even people who are very interested in homeschooling, this is one of the number one things I hear from people is, I'm really interested in homeschooling, but my husband's really worried about socialization, because everybody has heard the weird homeschool kid trope. And so they're so afraid that that's going to become or be who their kid is going to become. Again, I remind you, there are weirdos in public school too. But socialization is actually easier, I think, for homeschoolers. And hear me out. Again, not an indictment on your decision not to. I just feel like I need to point out a couple of things that I have noticed and seen in the 10 plus years that I've been homeschooling. It's that, first of all, the idea of socialization. There's this joke that we homeschoolers make all the time, which is that you socialize dogs, you educate children. We talk about taking our dogs, our puppies, to the dog park to socialize them with other dogs so that they're not aggressive, that sort of thing. Well, it's not quite the same thing with kids, right? Kids, the idea that we're going to put everyone of the same age into one room and we're expecting them to learn positive things from each other is really kind of crazy, because we don't do that for anything else and expect those results. If you look at other cultures, other places around the world where children are growing up in varied environments, that is where I think people really learn socialization skills, which to me are skills that are going to help you to operate in a healthy way in a society of people. Every society, every culture has its own set of expectations for people, how we should behave, what we should do, how we should talk to other people, that sort of thing. So that's not necessarily something you're going to learn in a school environment. It's actually something you're going to learn by living in the world, doing things out in the world, experiencing people of varied ages and backgrounds. Now, again, you can absolutely keep your kids at home, batten down the hatches, never take them out, and they're not going to learn these skills. So I'm not saying that these two things it's an automatic, right? That because you homeschool, your kids are going to be better socialized. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that as homeschoolers, it does give us a lot of opportunity to bring our kids out into the world that we actually live in. I think most of us can think back to high school especially, and my husband and I talk about this all the time. High school is like this weird little ecosystem that exists just for that time and then never again. The rules, the standards, the sort of food chain, if you will, in high school is based on only things that apply in high school and never really anywhere else in life. It's kind of interesting how the school environment, it does have its own little ecosystem that just doesn't really translate to the rest of the world and how the rest of the world operates. So I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that I don't think that learning to operate in that ecosystem is a necessity for being successful for the rest of your life. That would be my argument, is that I'm not saying that ecosystem is detrimental to the rest of your life, but I do know that there are people who had really terrible experiences in school be it from bullying or whatever, that really changed the trajectory of their lives. And it's something that if they could have avoided it, their life might look totally different. If I can't find a necessity in it, if I can't extrapolate out a good reason that says, you must go to public school, you must go into this environment because you have to have that in order to do this. Well, I can't find that correlation. But I can find a correlation between people who struggled afterwards, who dealt with some really tough stuff during that time that they might not have dealt with otherwise. So my only point in saying that is just simply to help contribute to the conversation of socialization so that hopefully we can kind of just tamp that down and be done with it. I would love for us to go on to more challenging topics to discuss related to homeschooling rather than circling the wagons on socialization again and again when it's just been flat out proven that that's not an issue, it's not a problem, that affects the homeschool community as a whole, no more so than it affects any individual kid or family. Number 10, and the last one, is one that maybe should have been the first because I really do think that it is the most important. And I've touched on it a couple times already, but that is simply that as homeschoolers, we don't think less of you and we don't judge you because you don't homeschool. I promise. Well, let me speak for myself. For me, I don't judge you and I don't think less of you because you don't homeschool. Especially because, again, I have sent my children to public school for various reasons, various times, seasons in our life, something my child was struggling with. There are very good and valid reasons why families know that homeschooling is not right for them. And it's not right for everybody. It's not right for every child. It's something that I just feel like I wish that we could stop pitting public school families and homeschool families against each other, that we could stop pitting homeschooling moms against teachers. Like those two things are, just like diametrically opposed, that you can't care about teachers or like teachers or think they're doing a good job at all if you choose to homeschool your kids. It's one of those things that I just wish that our world was better at holding two things at the same time, holding two truths at the same time and saying that, yeah, it's actually both a good thing. Homeschooling is great for some people. It should always be an option for people. But public schooling is also right for some people. Private school, other education options. We should just have options. That's all. At the end of the day, we should be able to choose what's right for our families. We should hopefully be supporting and encouraging each other. And I create content about homeschooling. I share about homeschooling. I have my course about homeschooling. All of that to serve other people who are interested in homeschooling, who think about it for whatever reason and want to know more, want to understand more. That is truly my heart for sharing about homeschooling, because I could just close all that up and never talk about it again, have it be a part of our life that I never share or talk about. But for me, it's been so beneficial for my children, so beneficial for me. I see so much good and positive come out of it that I really want to help and encourage other mothers who are interested in it to have the confidence that they need to do it, because I truly believe that if it's a desire on your heart that you really feel like is the right thing for your family, you can absolutely do it. Confidence is probably the biggest thing that moms lack when it comes to deciding to homeschool their kids. And the clarity to know what to do as you dive in, because you are kind of asking a dog to walk on its hind legs. Especially if you went through public school all the way, you kind of only know one way. And it does take some unlearning and some deschooling yourself and deschooling your kids if you're bringing them home from public school, in order to kind of get your feet sturdy on the ground and set yourself on a good course and path for your homeschooling journey, if you will, as a family. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I just hope that as more homeschool families share, homeschooling has increased by millions of families over the last few years, and I hope that as it becomes more of the norm, that there can be some really good open and honest dialogue about what homeschooling looks like, what it can look like, the options, the potential for your family, so that more families who feel interested in it can come to it and see the reality of it and not say no to it based on fear, and not walk away from that inkling, that hunch, that feeling that they want to homeschool, not walk away from that just based on stereotypes that we hear. So that is it for me today, y'all. I'm gonna climb down off my little soapbox and I will see you guys again very soon.